Welcome back to the second part of our lecture. I hope the 10 minutes has given you time to recap over the topic we are studying today. We will look at Ellen Sirleaf. Ellen Sirleaf, the first African woman president to lead an African state. She is a social activist who contributes immensely to peace in Liberia. She addresses the growing pains of a nation in search of a soul. She casts a giant shadow on the recent history of the youngest yet oldest republic in Africa. In her story, we see a woman growing up in Liberia in the 1950s, her maturity and aging into a dynamic political leader in the 2000s. She lives close, sometimes too close, a proximity to every political leadership that influences the cause, C-O-U-R-S-E, the cause of her story during the period that transforms the lives of millions in Liberia. Read her autobiography for inspiration. It is entitled, "This Child Will Be Great," a 2009 publication. Read it for inspiration. Read it so that her life may inspire you to think differently and to transform many lives. Her autobiography is a good example of literary activism. We look at yet another woman, that is Winnie Mandela, South Africa. She demonstrates a social activist who seeks to free her country from the chains of apartheid. Remember, South Africa got its freedom just the other day in 1994 with Nelson Mandela as the first president. So Winnie joined in the struggle to ensure that, they got rid of this type of governance that did not allow them as South Africans to enjoy the benefits that their plentiful country had to offer them. They were discriminated against by the white leaders. Now, Winnie Mandela composed a slogan, "A luta continua." A luta continua simply means that she was going to continue in the struggle to free South Africa from this apartheid type of governance, even while her husband was in prison at Robben Island. And we want to note that whereas Nelson Mandela was in prison for 28 years at the Robben Island, Winnie Mandela continued with the struggle to ensure that this apartheid was fought and brought underfoot. She expresses how an empowered woman hungers for open space where she could express her ideas. Winnie depicts an outstanding, strong personality with an impressive capacity to speak her mind in an extremely hostile environment. Surrounded with the horrors of apartheid and cruel male epistemes, her story. We are not looking at Winnie's history, no. We are looking at her story. Her story is a case of a story within a history, the history of apartheid. Her experience is shaped by culture, color, open a bracket, the caliber inherent in South Africa during the apartheid system, close a bracket, and gender. Women were not given much recognition. Now, the story of Winnie is captured in an autobiography she has contributed to us entitled "Part of My Soul Went with Him." Now, we note with a lot of sadness that Nelson Mandela divorced Winnie when he got back, and actually found that Winnie had continued championing the efforts on the struggle that he had started before being taken to prison. He listened to gossip. And as a result of the gossip he listened to, like all men, he divorced Winnie and married Rosa Parks. We will move on to yet another social activist by the name Wangari Maathai. She comes to us as an eco-feminist and an environmentalist. She entertains us and intertwines her struggle to conserve the environment with her struggle to create some space for herself in the democratic spaces of the Kenyan nation. She identifies herself as a nurturant at two levels: a nurturant nurturing her family, and a nurturant nurturing nature. That's why we are seeing her as an eco-feminist and also seeing her as an environmentalist. She struggled to conserve the environment. She performs her social activism by nurturing and protecting the environment, and aspects of that nurturant quality can be depicted in her frantic effort to save Karura Forest from greedy land grabbers and her efforts to save Uhuru Park by ensuring that the complex that was meant to host government offices did not take off during the Moi era. She made an effort to practice environmental protection as a tool for correcting her society. And she seeks to be viewed differently from how society has viewed women in the past. No wonder she entitles her autobiography Unbowed to mean that she had dismantled the structures that bound women and, stopped them from being free to participate in the democratic spaces she had created. Now, ecofeminism describes movements and philosophies that link feminism with ecology. This movement seeks to eradicate all forms of social justice, not just injustice against women and the environment, but the injustices unleashed on the environment. The term is believed to have been coined by the French woman Francoise d'Aubonne in her book Le Féminisme la Mort. From arguments that there are particular and significant connections between women and nature, ecofeminism relates the oppression of domination of all subordinate groups. And when we talk of domination, we are talking of domination of women, domination of people of color, domination of children, and domination of the poor. Now, the domination of these people compare favorably to the oppression and domination of nature by men, the menfolk in society. And this is seen in animals, in land, in water, and in air. For instance, the menfolk use the same language in referring to women as they use the same language in referring to these aspects of nature. For instance, you have a barren woman, and you also have a barren land. So the use of this language denotes spite that the menfolk despised nature just as much as they despised women. Now, all these subordinate groups have been subjected to oppression, domination, exploitation, colonization by the Western patriarchal society that values men and despises against women. Ecofeminists believe these connections are traditionally illustrated through feminine values such as reciprocity. The women receive. They're on the receiving end. That women are nurturants. That women are expected to cooperate. The men do not expect to cooperate, but they expect the women to cooperate. Just like they expect nature to cooperate with them, when in actual fact they don't cooperate with nature. Now when this happens, Wangari Maathai warns that if we destroy nature, then nature will turn its wrath against humanity. So it is important to nurture nature so that nature can continue taking good care of us. Now in her story about Wangari as a social activist relates how her feminine contributions to the women's welfare and her position in the National Council of Kenya as their leader, as their chair. And she also won the coveted position and honor as a laureate. Her fearless strength in adversity, creative approach to building a peaceful, healthy planet, ambassadoring peace, hard work, inspiring and empowering women are accolades that culminate into her being crowned a Nobel Peace Laureate, as I've just said. The details of her accomplishments are embedded in her autobiography, as I've already said, and her autobiography is entitled Unbowed. This is a 2006 publication, very recent, and in the millennium. The last female character that we will look at is Rosa Parks, 1960. Now, Rosa Parks' social activism, again, is placed in the US. She sought justice for African American women who were frequently assaulted both verbally and physically. She sparked off a crisis when she refused to move to the back of the bus in Montgomery. She stubbornly sought to question the discrimination, that why should I move to the back of the bus? I'm a human being just like these other human beings. I should not be relegated to the periphery just because I'm a black woman. Yeah. So she stubbornly sought to question the discrimination through a tenet that we refer to as black feminism. And she used this movement to urge the Americans to take note of the black supremacy. The black were a superior race and should not be relegated to poor neighborhoods. They should be allowed to live in better neighborhoods. Her rebellion in the bus meant that even black women deserved to enjoy sitting in the bus. They did not have to stand at the back like the system of governance at the time expected them to do. Now, this rebellion extended to the private spaces of the women. It extended to their homes. When you talk of private spaces of women, we're talking of their spaces at home. Now that this public space that Rosa Parks sought to create for the women was receiving a lot of challenge, she thought that women also needed to make their stance to be heard in the private spaces, that is at home. Because women are often abused by white drivers, and many times the white passengers discriminated against them, and sometimes the black women would be asked to alight to create space for the white women if they were being rained on. And Rosa Parks fought and made sure that she started a movement that gave black women some kind of recognition. She fought the Calabar, and as a result of that effort she made, as a result of her social activism, the black women started receiving recognition and started gaining voice. The women ambassadoring amity, like Rosa Parks, faced a lot of negativism from the male folk because they were, in a way, dismantling the male structures inherent in the society. And that background she gave in the bus really opened the eyes of many women, and they started resisting against discrimination. Her story deepens our understanding and inspires us on the path to gender activism. We have given several examples that indicate how social activism by women in different spaces, both locally and internationally, can give the required recognition. A brief on what we call the global power relations. Now, when we divide the globe into four, we come up with 4 areas. We come with the Eastern Bloc, that is India, China, Japan, Korea, and we come up with the West. When we talk of the West, we have Europe in mind. Now, when we talk of Africa, we're talking of the South, the Southern Hemisphere. So that means we now look to the US as the Northern Hemisphere. What we can give as an example in this activism in the global space is that hard work done by countries and hard work done by individuals can change these positions. Like Spivak says, you really don't have to, be content with the position or the lot you have been given. You can change that particular allotment and seek a better position. China has sought it, and we now look to the East. Women have sought a difference, and we can now see women in positions of power. We can now see that China is competing with the US over this hegemon, so that they also become a force to reckon with. These changes can be made. Let us take a break and meet one more time next week to conclude this unit. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you, and have a nice time.